The 49ers out-schemed, out-coached, and outclassed by the Kansas City Chiefs in their three-score loss to a Super Bowl favorite at Levi's Stadium yesterday. This is Lombardi's Look Back. This is the video that comes after I've had a chance to rewatch the game tape at least twice. I did it last night and then again this morning, poured over it in the coffee shop of all places. And boy, was that a rough performance from the 49ers on both sides of the ball, but especially defensively. I mean, if we're going to make a blame list for this game, the defense is at the very top. I wrote about it yesterday right after the game. Here's the article. The title might seem familiar to you. 49ers get outclassed on both lines of scrimmage in the blowout loss to the Chiefs. So I try to encapsulate the primary issue on both sides of the ball, but mainly on defense is where this game went sideways for the 49ers. Here's a graphic for you. This is the list of worst 49ers defensive outings since 2017. The Chiefs game yesterday is at the top of the list. The 49ers allowed 9.1 yards per play. Second worst game of the Shanahan tenure was in the sevens. 7.4 yards per play allowed. They were at 10.2 yards per play allowed before garbage time in this game yesterday. The 49ers were. So they were almost 3 yards worse than any other game in the Shanahan era. And somebody was trying to compare it to the Saints game in 2019. And yeah, that was a bad defensive performance from the 49ers. But they had most of their talent in this game against the Chiefs. And that Saints game, that was a big-time injury depletion game. I remember Marcel Harris was the safety in that one. Dee Ford only played a couple snaps. But in that game against the Saints in 2019, which the 49ers won, by the way, they give up 6.8 yards per play. You see the difference here. 10.2 yards per play given up against Kansas City before garbage time versus 6.8 against the Saints in the Superdome in 2019. Against the Saints in the Superdome in 2019, the 49ers had a 5-drive stretch where they forced a punt, a turnover on downs, a fumble, a field goal, and one more successful outcome, maybe another punt. I forget exactly how that went, but you get the idea. They had 5 drives in the middle of the game, the 49ers did, where the defense actually allowed the team to stay afloat, gave themselves a fighting chance. Against the Chiefs, there was none of that. The Chiefs would have scored 7 straight touchdowns in this game had they not run out of time at the end of the first half. They missed a field goal instead, and they did score a touchdown on that drive, but it got called back due to a penalty. So there was no resistance from the 49ers defense, and we're going to get into the reasons why and how the 49ers can fix it in this video. So I thought that the headline was the appropriate way to describe this: out-schemed, out-coached, and outclassed by Kansas City, because at the end of the day, this falls on Kyle Shanahan and it falls on his staff, on DeMeco Ryans. When you watch the tape, they did not put the 49ers in proper position to succeed, while on the other side of the ball, Andy Reid put the Chiefs into proper position to succeed. I'm going to divide this up into a series of big issues, okay? Because I think that we need to simplify this. We need to take a look at this in outline fashion so that way we can prescribe what the 49ers must do to right the ship. They're 3-4, but the NFC West leader, Seattle, is only 4-3, and the 49ers have a massive division game against the Rams, who they usually right the ship against next week at SoFi Stadium, aka Levi's South. Big issue number one yesterday: Andy Reid exposed the 49ers over aggressiveness, and DeMeco Ryans did not have a counterattack. The 49ers get after the quarterback on the defensive side of the football. Nick Bosa lines up in that 3-point stance, loves to fire off the ball and beat the tackle that he's working against, and he likes to amass the sacks. He's got 7 of them now on this 2022 season. His pass rushing cohorts enjoy doing the same thing. So we're talking about Sansom Ebukam, Charles Omenihu, you name it. Drake Jackson yesterday had a nice pressure for the 49ers. The key to being able to do that is stopping the run game. Because if an opponent is able to run the football on you, then you have to start worrying about that. And if you have to worry about the run game, then you do not fire off the football the way that you need to maximize your pass rushing efficiency in the wide 9. So that's why I say you have to earn the right to rush the passer. Well, the 49ers didn't earn the right to rush the passer yesterday because Kansas City ran circles around their aggressiveness. And it looked like Nick Bosa hadn't been coached in this game. McCole Hardman runs right by Nick Bosa 2 times, literally right by him on the jet sweep. And Nick Bosa is stuck in pass rushing mode. That is something that just cannot happen. Now, I get that the 49ers are short on personnel on the interior defensive line, and this is hurting this team big time. And all the Eric Armstead slander, I mean, people need to be writing written apologies right now because you could see what this 49ers defense is without Eric Armstead. It's a defense that consistently gives up 100 yards rushing. With Eric Armstead, they don't do that. At this time last season, when the 49ers were similarly struggling in run defense, especially on some of those runs right up the middle, because they were short on defensive tackles, they moved Eric Armstead inside full time, and they became the number one run defense in football essentially overnight. So Eric Armstead and his versatility is so important to this defense, but let's forget that for a second because the 49ers don't have it right now. He's got a foot injury. Sounds to me like the earliest they can expect him back is after the bye week, which is after this next game, but TBD on that front. The 49ers have to work with what they have. D'Amico Ryans has to conjure up as good of a pass rush and a run defense as what he has, and that is backup defensive tackles right now, but a full stable of edge rushers. The 49ers still have an embarrassment of riches at the edge rusher position, starting with Nick Bosa, going to Sansa Mebucom, Charles Amenahu, and Drake Jackson. They still have a lot of these guys, but they have to be coached better. I mean, for all that D'Amico Ryans did so well last season, he figured out a way to tighten the screws on this defense, dial up pressure just the right time. Remember, he started off terribly last year. I mean, it was bad against Green Bay when the defense blew that lead in the final 37 seconds. There were several holes early on, but D'Amico Ryans tightened the screws toward the end of the season. Well, as impressive of a coaching job as that was, this was, I mean, just a spanking from Andy Reid. His former coach, D'Amico Ryans, played under Andy Reid in 2012 in Philadelphia, that last season with the Eagles for Andy Reid. But I mean, this was a clinic put on by Andy Reid, and D'Amico Ryans is going to have to go back to the drawing board because back to what I was saying, those runs to the perimeter, that was pure out coaching. That was pure out scheming. Run to the edge with McCole Hardman and have Nick Bosa not ready for it at all. And then missed tackles on the back end from the 49ers. It didn't look like the linebackers were distracted by all the eye candy that Kansas City puts out there. Again, 49ers were not prepared to be competitive in this game defensively, and it ended up being the worst defensive performance of the Kyle Shanahan era. We can't overstate that. This was the worst defensive performance of the Kyle Shanahan era. D'Amico Ryans has players that are way better than the 17 and 18 units that Robert Saleh had, and they just performed worse than those units. And then, to just add insult to all the injury in the second half, the 49ers had a chance to, I won't say it was a bailout chance, but it was a chance to really get back in the game. They had Kansas City on the ropes. It's 3rd and 20. And again, the Chiefs managed to burn the 49ers over aggressiveness, this time with a screen pass to Jerick McKinnon, of all people. Jerick McKinnon, the guy who the 49ers signed to be their screen pass specialist, essentially the role that Christian McCaffrey is now going to have, and that's going to come in a little bit. But the irony of Christian McCaffrey's debut being spoiled by a screen on 3rd and 20 to Jerick McKinnon being the back-breaking play, or one of the back-breaking plays. The other one was the bomb on the other 3rd and long after the Bosa sack. But one of the back-breaking plays went to Jerick McKinnon. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, that's in the same category as Dante Pettis beating the 49ers in week 1, or at least delivering a play that registered a major gut punch against the 49ers in week 1. But, I mean, this was low-level stuff from the 49ers. To not be ready for a screen pass on 3rd and long is unacceptable. Unacceptable. They weren't ready for a screen on 3rd and long. McKinnon even chipped Bosa. I mean, how can you take that seriously? Jerick McKinnon, seriously? Jerick McKinnon trying to block Nick Bosa? Of course, if he's trying to half-heartedly chip Nick Bosa, he's going to split off for a screen pass. That should be the biggest tell of all time. No, Bosa just kept on powering forward toward the quarterback, sucked in totally by the fake action from Kansas City. McKinnon got the, but you don't have any stack monsters in that situation, right? Stack monsters are defensive linemen who convert into screen pursuers. So Bosa sucked in, stack monsters, done for the play. 49ers linebackers, defensive backs, you name it, outclassed by Jerick McKinnon downfield. Andy Reid exposed the 49ers' aggressiveness in this game, but more than that, he exposed D'Amico Ryan's inability to counter that. The 49ers defense has to stay at home. Their pass rush has to be ready for some of these mitigating strategies that opposing offenses are going to use. And the 49ers cannot be fooled by eye candy. I don't care if it's the Chiefs doing it or if it's the worst offense in the league doing it. You have to stay home when eye candy is presented to you. And the 49ers did not do that yesterday. So that was the first big issue, is that Andy Reid just put on a masterclass and the 49ers defense wasn't ready for it. And it turned into one ugly defensive performance, the worst of the Shanahan era. Those of you just walking in, before I move on to big issue number 2, this is the article yesterday. 49ers got outclassed on both lines of scrimmage and the blowout loss to the Chiefs. I hope what I just talked about helped illuminate what was going on one of the sides of the ball. I'm posting this into the chat section, so you can go ahead and check it out. Please do subscribe to The Athletic and obviously sub to this video. We've got all these written breakdowns with many, many more coming. In fact, I'm going to start shifting focus to the offensive side of the ball, because I think that schematically, a lot of the 49ers problems were actually related to the issues that they faced on the defensive side of the ball. And you'll see what I mean by that here in just a second. Big issue number 2. The Chiefs D-line. I mean, remember what I talked about in issue number 1, right? The 49ers defensive line being aggressive and the Chiefs burning them. Well, the same dynamic was present and ripe for the picking on the other side of the ball. The Chiefs D-line was also aggressive, but Shanahan did little to adjust. And I mean, this is a big one right here for me. Look at the penalties in this game, right? The 49ers had Nick Bosa lined up in the neutral zone twice. They had an offsides penalty on Charles Omenihu. They were really antsy, overeager, on the defensive line, and the Chiefs and Andy Reid made him pay for it. Well, the same thing was true on the other side. Frank Clark jumped off sides on a snap. Frank Clark was looking to take Jimmy Garoppolo's head off. I mean, these guys were pinning their ears back, and they were ready to rush the passer. But the 49ers didn't do anything about it. The 49ers fell victim to multiple cover zero blitzes in this game, and there was no proper outlet for Jimmy Garoppolo to throw to. Now, Garoppolo did have an outlet to throw to against I don't think there were cover zero blitzes in the second half, but he did beat a couple pressure situations. One with a nice throw to Christian McCaffrey as he got hammered, and the other a third down play to Kyle Juszczyk into the shade there on that near sideline. And Juszczyk slipped Justin Reed's tackle. It was a good example of Harvard beating Stanford on a play. Justin Reed, Stanford, Kyle Juszczyk, Harvard. Just in case you didn't know, he went to Harvard. But Garoppolo did run 2 outlet blitz beaters. But for the most part, especially, in the middle of this game, when Kansas City was establishing firm control, the 49ers let Steve Spagnuolo's blitzes dictate how this would go. And this is an issue that I think is bigger than just this one game. First of all, the 49ers had to have known that Spagnuolo was going to blitz. That's his MO. He didn't bring the blitzes early. He brought them kind of toward halftime there. One good example was the Garoppolo interception. Jimmy Garoppolo made a bad situation worse there. That was a play where a sack was probably the optimal outcome based on the setup of the play. He should have taken a sack or found a way to heave it out the back of the end zone, but I don't know if that was possible because he got decked on the play. So Kansas City brought too many rushers for the 49ers to handle too quickly. It was one of the aggressive cover zero blitzes. The Chiefs were very aggressive coming after the 49ers on that play, right? When that happens, schematically, you have to counter by having an outlet pass. The outlet on that play was Jeff Wilson Jr., but he was like the 3rd or the 4th read on the right side. There's no way in hell in the 1.2 seconds that it took the Chiefs cover zero blitz to get the Garoppolo is going to be able to scan from left to right to find his outlet in Jeff Wilson. That outlet needs to be much, much more accessible on a play like that, period. And the outlet in those situations and the solution in those situations, I think, was illustrated by what Andy Reid did against the 49ers with that screen pass to Jerick McKinnon. Andy Reid runs a master class in the screen game. Well, the 49ers rank in the bottom 10 of running back screens this year. Now, they have Christian McCaffrey on the team, so this is good news. I mean, McCaffrey's a weapon in the screen game. He actually led the NFL in his time with Carolina this season with 16 screen passes run to him as a running back. So the 49ers now have the personnel to run that screen game, but they obviously didn't utilize it when they needed to against some aggressive Chiefs blitzes on Sunday. In fact, like we can go back to that Carolina game when McCaffrey was still on the other team, where Carolina ran a lot of cover zero against the 49ers. And it seems to me that Shanahan's blitz beating game has been way too reliant on miraculous Jimmy Garoppolo throws. Remember when they ran cover zero, the Panthers did, and Garoppolo just got drilled and he had to toss that one up to Tevin Coleman. It was a great throw and it was a great catch, but to me, that's just not a sustainable formula. I mean, Garoppolo has made these excellent throws against the blitz, but you cannot rely on your quarterback getting drilled and having to throw the ball 35 yards downfield into a completion as he gets drilled. Sometimes you have to have that easier outlet like the 49ers did with McCaffrey in the second half and with Kyle Juszczyk in the second half. And I think moving forward, there's no excuse for the 49ers to not have that easier outlet on every single play because they have so many weapons. You talk about them having so many weapons being less than the sum of their collective parts, right? They have so many weapons, yet they weren't able to consistently deliver offensively yesterday. Well, a big part of that is the boom and bust nature of this offense. You've got to be better moving the chains on defense aggressive situations. And I think to do that, Christian McCaffrey with his quickness, his skill set, he can be that constant outlet. But it's up to Kyle Shanahan to scheme that outlet in there, to recognize when those blitzes might be coming from the opponent so that the 49ers can quickly determine they're going to go to the sustainable outlet on any given play. Again, bottom 10 of running back screens for the 49ers. This goes back for the past 3 years. Jeff Deeney at PFF helped me pull some of this stuff. I'm going to write a little bit more about it later. The 49ers need to call more of these because they now have a screen special personnel, right? I mean, they've had it for years. I don't know why they have. In 2019, I think they're number 10 in screen passes. Obviously, that season ended up well for the 49ers. These are running back screen passes. They have a yak-based personnel on this team, right? Guys that can run after the catch. And they have an offensive line that is better at run blocking and blocking in space than it is in pass protection. Yet they're bottom 10 in running back screens this year. I'm sorry, but that has to change. Especially with Christian McCaffrey now in tow, there's no excuse. So Shanahan did little to adjust. He better do a whole lot more to adjust because you can bet your house the teams are going to bring heavy pressure against the 49ers after what that heavy pressure from Steve Spagnuolo did to the 49ers in key situations yesterday. The problem for the 49ers is that big issue number 3 is one that doesn't have anything to do with blitzes. It's Mike McGlinchey's pass protection mano-a-mano. Mike McGlinchey losing one-on-one. So defenses right now are capable of rushing 4 and beating McGlinchey enough times in one game to detonate said game. This happened yesterday. Mike McGlinchey at right tackle gave up 4 pressures and 2 sacks. And what the Kansas City Chiefs did was downright disrespectful. They took Chris Jones, their best defensive lineman, right? But he's a tackle. He's a 320, 330-pound tackle who, should specialize in pass rushing against guards on the interior. I mean, he's bigger. He's stockier. You don't want him on the edge, right? Normally. But the Chiefs did want him on the edge. They lined him up as an edge rusher. They moved Chris Jones, the top pass rushing defensive tackle in the league, to the outside to work against the 49ers right tackle Mike McGlinchey, and he schooled him. He backed Mike McGlinchey into Jimmy Garoppolo for the first sack. He did it more than once. 4 pressures for Chris Jones. And again, I can't emphasize the fact that they lined Chris Jones, an interior rusher, up against a tackle in this game. And that shows you that Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy knew that the 49ers have a weakness at right tackle. And they exposed that weakness at right tackle. So we can talk about blitzes and the 49ers need to burn blitzes with the screen game, all that we want. But if right tackle is just getting spanked by the opposition's best defensive tackle because of a schematic maneuver that they make because they think that weakness is so pronounced, the 49ers are going to be huge, huge trouble. McGlinchey has to anchor better. The 49ers can only do so much to scheme around a pass protection deficiency. Yes, that's why it's so important that they run the ball successfully, right? Because you want to stay ahead of down and distance. You want to shield McGlinchey from situations like the one yesterday, but it's not always going to be a luxury that you have in the NFL, especially when your defense cannot force a single punt until garbage time. When it's Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen on the other side, if you have Super Bowl aspirations, you're going to have to, keep pace with some of these explosive offenses in games like this one. I don't think the 49ers defense is going to be as bad as it was again this season, but it's still a lesson that they're going to have to, that they're going to need some help from their offense in situations where they do give up some more explosive plays. And when that help needs to come, the 49ers need to win mano a mano in pass protection. And Mike McGlinchey lost mano a mano way too often in pass protection yesterday against Chris Jones. So that's an issue. How did the 49ers solve it? Well, McGlinchey is who McGlinchey is. So they solve it by scheming around it as much as possible. And one thing that I've never understood, and I don't know, I still can't get a read of how close the 49ers might be to doing this, but Daniel Brunskill is a player who's put his best football on tape at tackle, namely right tackle, back in 2019. They worked Brunskill in at right guard again yesterday for the final 24 snaps of the game, but Spencer Burford was not a pass protection problem. He only gave up one pressure. In fact, if you look at what the 49ers gave up pressure-wise yesterday, it was 4 for McGlinchey, 2 for Trent Williams, 1 for Burford, clean sheet for Banks, Aaron Banks, who's not given up a single sack all season. He was the 49ers' highest graded offensive player at left guard, and a clean sheet for Jake Brendel. The interior is not the issue. Trent Williams, he might be a little bit rusty coming off the high ankle sprain. We'll keep an eye on that. He gave up the safety. Frank Clark just beat him clean around the edge. And it was Mike McGlinchey that gave up a lot of the pressure at tackle. So it's the tackles that have been the problem for the 49ers, which to me is ironic because everybody was worried about the interior line entering this season, right? The interior line is graded out well in pass protection. It's that tackle position that's been the problem. Yet Brunskill is working in at right guard. Where I don't really think the 49ers need Brunskill working in at right guard. If he's going to work in anywhere, maybe you look at this tackle situation on the right side. And if we look at this in the longer picture, this is the last year that McGlinchey's under contract. And so it's a contract year for him. I think to modernize this offense, to move, the 49ers need better pass protection from that right tackle position. We talk about how good of a run blocker he is, but this team right now at that right tackle position is giving up too much in pass obvious situations, and they are not avoiding those pass obvious situations because I just don't think it's feasible to run away from them forever in the modern NFL, given the defensive dynamics and obviously given what's going to be needed from the offense in terms of explosiveness because of those defensive dynamics. All right, big issue number 4 yesterday was Ward squared. Ward squared is Charvarius Ward and Jimmy Ward. I believe that both of them were playing hurt. I think Jimmy Ward is obviously playing hurt. He was playing with his cast. Gave up several receptions, didn't force a single incompletion. Patrick Mahomes shows up in his post-game press conference and says, oh, yeah, they had a guy with a cast on, so we just went after him on defense. So Ward gave up a touchdown where he couldn't keep up with the tight end. He gave up a handful more catches, just wasn't great in coverage. Couldn't, really run his bump and run at the line of scrimmage the way he normally does because he was compromised with that cast. It was an issue. The Chiefs picked on it. This goes back to issue number 1. Andy Reid picked on D'Amico Ryans in this game. Andy Reid out-schemed the 49ers. And one of the reasons that he was able to out-scheme the 49ers, I think, is because they had 2 clearly injured players on the back end. Now, Charvarius Ward said that he was fully healthy after the game. Do we take his word for it? Well, he looked a whole hell of a lot better before the groin strain than he did in this game after the groin strain. And we know that he was questionable leading up to it, that he didn't practice on Wednesday and Thursday, but did practice on Friday. So, I don't know. He didn't look healthy. You would think that he would be a little bit more familiar with Mahomes and some of the Chiefs schemes. I know it's a different team now without Tyreek Hill. And they've restocked at other receiver positions to try to make up for that. But on the game's biggest play, there's a lot of game's biggest plays. I know one of them was Jerick McKinnon's screen, but another one was where Charvarius Ward got beaten over the top. And the 49ers finally scored a touchdown and they got pressure. They got the sack, their only sack of the game with Nick Bosa. They got the Chiefs into that 3rd and long, and Ward got beaten on the go pattern. Just couldn't keep up, right? And it's almost to the point where the 49ers have to hope that the groin was slowing him down. Because if that's what he's going to look like the rest of the season, if it was just fool's gold how good he looked through the first few games, then it's not just Patrick Mahomes who's going to be picking on that weakness. So I tend to believe, Occam's razor is the simplest explanation, usually ends up being true. And we saw how injured the 49ers were in previous weeks. They returned an inordinate amount of players for this game against the Chiefs. There's a good chance that they weren't fully 100%. And if you're the 49ers defense, they put a lot of good stuff on tape in weeks prior and years prior. Some of these players, Charvarius Ward included, Nick Bosa, Jimmy Ward. You almost give them the benefit of the doubt after one really, really bad outing like this, right? Where they're giving up nearly 7 straight touchdown drives, highest yards per play in the Shanahan era. You say, hey, you got to hope that this is some kind of aberration, right? If you're the 49ers, you have to hope that this is the anomaly. And I think that the larger body of work suggests that it will be. But then the next question is how quickly, do these guys get fully healthy to make this an anomaly? And, B, are they able to get healthy and execute crisply enough by next week to make sure that the Rams don't counter adjust them to death? Because they own the Rams early in October. 35 pressures, 8 sacks. The Rams offensive line is probably in even worse shape right now. So it's on the table for the 49ers to show the improvement they need to defensively next week. But the question is, are they healthy enough and will they be able to do it? And, that's why we play these games. That's why we look to see what's actually going to happen to answer these questions. But I can tell you that the 49ers are certainly happy that they're not playing the Chiefs again. They can get well against the Rams. All right, now big issue number 5. And, this is more of a reactionary issue because, as you know, I like to have and foster intelligent discourse surrounding the 49ers. And, to me, it's just such low hanging fruit. Singular blame of the quarterback is just such low level analysis that won't forward the situation. And so many people just try to do it. And I get it. They get clicks and they think that they're being critical or I don't know what their objective is, but it's like, come on, watch the game. And if you watched this game yesterday, you probably saw this. You probably saw Frank Clark beating Trent Williams around the edge. That's Trent Williams' helmet there in the background behind Frank Clark. Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't have a chance. He's looking to make a play. 49ers are down 2 scores from his own end zone. He can't just throw that ball away. He's got to trust his left tackle, and he's got to try to make a play. He couldn't make a play. The 49ers offensive line, obviously, at the tackle positions especially, failed in this game. 49ers schematically failed in this game. They didn't have outlets against some of these aggressive KC blitzes. I'm not counting this play because that wasn't a blitz. That was Frank Clark just beating Trent Williams clean. The 49ers delivered their worst game defensively of the Shanahan era. So they just go out there and say, oh, the quarterback didn't do enough. You know who also wouldn't have done enough with that defensive effort? Josh Allen the week before. The Buffalo Bills against the Chiefs, had they gotten the 49ers defensive effort against the Chiefs to pair with their offensive performance, the Bills would have been blown out by the Chiefs. Would you have, gone, oh, Josh Allen didn't do enough? It's crazy to expect it's not crazy. It's asking a lot for an offense to win a game in which its defense allows 30 plus. That's asking a lot. It is absurd to expect an offense to win a game where its defense allows 40 plus. You can't expect that. Occasionally it's going to happen. Occasionally you're going to get 19 against the Saints where 49ers won 48-46. But to expect an offense to win a game where its defense is allowing 40 plus just isn't going to happen. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo is not without fault in this game. He's not without error in this game. I said that he made a bad situation worse on that cover 0 interception throw, but he also threw for over 300 yards in this game. He also beat several hits in this game because the 49ers were letting up pressure, made nice passes. The Ray McLeod touchdown was a really good one against pressure. The McCaffrey one against pressure was good. Found George Kittle deep on one play. Quarterback is pretty far down on the 49ers list of issues right now. They've gotten solid play from Jimmy Garoppolo for several straight weeks here. It is complete low-hanging fruit, and I get it. People feel that if they can singularly put the blame on one person, and quarterback is usually the easiest one because he handles the ball on every single play, they feel that's going to somehow make them feel better. But guess what? I'm not here to make you feel better. And the truth is, the 49ers' issues are much more problematic than the quarterback position right now. They got beaten on both lines of scrimmage yesterday, and they got out schemed, out coached, and outclassed by Kansas City. And to me, that's, if you want the homer take here, the homer take is blaming it all on the quarterback. If you want to be a homer in this situation, you blame it all on the quarterback. But if you want to be a realist and look at the true depth of the 49ers problems, you look at this in the big picture and you realize, oh, this is not just on the quarterback right here. This is on the schematics. I mean, this is coaching. This is on the defense. Obviously, that's part of the schematics in this situation. And, this is on just a larger loss on both lines of scrimmage. And to me, that's really troubling because the 49ers, I mean, can they turn it around? Obviously, they can turn it around. They did last year, but they're going to have to dig deep and turn this around on a fundamental level, especially if they're going to want to beat a team like Kansas City or Buffalo in the Super Bowl. You know who turned around the line of scrimmage on a fundamental level in the past couple of years? The Kansas City Chiefs. Remember them again in the Super Bowl against the 49ers before they made their comeback? They gave up 31 pressures, 14 to Bosa, 5 sacks. Remember the next year in the Super Bowl, they just got blanked. They got dominated. They held out of the end zone, gave up way too much pressure to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Chiefs sat down and invested heavily in their offensive line to the point where they replaced all 5 starters on their offensive line since they last played the 49ers in the Super Bowl. Look at the difference it made. They're now top 5 in the NFL in pass block win rate. They mauled the 49ers on the ground. They finished their blocks. The 49ers had 14 pressures in this game versus 35 against the Rams a couple weeks ago. That's an absurd difference in pressures, 21 fewer pressures for the 49ers. In a game where Mahomes obviously was pass heavy, just like he always is. I mean, the Chiefs invested in their offensive line, and their defensive line obviously also is really good. And both of those sides of the ball kicked the 49ers' ass on the opposite side of the line of scrimmage. So that's where the 49ers' problems truly lie, is at this deeply embedded level on both lines of scrimmage. And obviously yesterday with a coaching staff that was overmatched by Andy Reid. Now, the glory of the NFL is that every single game presents a new opportunity. And that's something that the 2021 49ers should have showed us. Everybody was ready to call it quits when the 49ers, not everybody, but most people, ready to call it quits when the 49ers were 3-5. But they turned it around because they got back to the basics. Kyle Shanahan started coaching that offense, and the offense started executing in a way that was tailored to its strengths. And DeMeco Ryans really found his groove as the defensive coordinator. And the 49ers defense started really playing to its strengths. And the 49ers started delivering team efforts. And all of a sudden, the same team that looked so bad at times when it started 3-5 was on a tear, winning 5 of 6, and it would end up all the way in the NFC title game. So the key here is that this is a marathon and it's not a sprint. And one game against Kansas City is not going to determine the rest of the 49ers season. The 2012 49ers team was in attendance yesterday. Jim Harbaugh was there. It was a big reunion for the 49ers. And it's, I think, easy to forget that 2012 49ers team got completely worked a couple times during that season. They got worked by the Seattle Seahawks during that season. They also got worked by the New York Giants during the regular season. So this is going to happen in the NFL. You're going to run into teams that on that Sunday are way better than you. And I think the Chiefs are better than the 49ers right now on the aggregate on any given Sunday. But yesterday, they are way, way better. It's how you respond to this that determines how you perform in the marathon, because this is not a sprint. This is a long run. How does Kyle Shanahan respond in this game? How does DeMeco Ryans respond in this game? How, to me, on offense, I talk about Christian McCaffrey being potentially the fix for the 49ers in the outlet game. And I think that's the biggest fix the 49ers need to make. because they're going to be working with the personnel that they have. So, how does Kyle Shanahan integrate Christian McCaffrey moving forward now that he's going to have time to learn the whole playbook? How does that turn into something that the 49ers can develop into positive cohesion, consistent cohesion on the offensive end? How does the back end of the defense and the front for that matter, because they got beaten, on both ends of the defense. How does that unit collectively, when so much went wrong in the worst performance of the Shanahan era for the defense, how do they respond moving forward? To me, that's really the question, because the 49ers have been in more desperate straits than this before. But it's important to identify what actually is the issue and then move forward with that. And to, sit back and say, oh, it's all on the quarterback, when it's obviously wasn't. When the quarterback, did a lot of good stuff and it was low on that level of blame for yesterday, that misses the actual point of what happened. And then you can't get on to fixing what actually happened. And what actually happened, I mean, the big issues, I'll go through them one more time, but that Andy Reid exposed the 49ers aggressiveness on defense with those perimeter runs, the hard men, and that screen. Jerick McKinnon and D'Amico Ryans didn't have answers. On the other side of the ball, Shanahan could have done what Reid did, but he didn't. So the Chiefs defensive line just got away with teeing off on Jimmy Garoppolo, and that wasn't good. And that's on Shanahan. They need to run some more screen passes, and maybe they do take advantage of Christian McCaffrey. They better moving forward, because I think he might be the perfect medicine for that. Mike McGlinchey struggles in pass protection. I mean, if there was a singular player low light on offense for the 49ers, it was absolutely that. And on the defensive end, both of the Wards, I think both playing hurt. The 49ers need to bounce back for that. Big issue 5 kind of wraps everything together, 1 through 4, and points out that a lot of people are looking at this the total wrong way. I mean, and sorry if it makes you feel better, but this is deeper than just quarterback. The 49ers, just like last year, the 49ers have to play better as a team, and that's going to start by coaching better. And it's, of course, going to stretch into some of that execution. But I think schematically, they need to be in a better position to succeed moving forward. But the good news for the 49ers is that the Rams are next. And the Rams have been the fix-it for the 49ers in the past. And the Rams are weaker along both fronts than they ever have been. I mean, even weaker than they were earlier this month on Monday Night Football at Levi's Stadium, right? Joe Noteboom done for the year. Their left tackle, he was bad to begin with. So the 49ers just terrorized the Rams up front in early October. They should have the personnel to do it again. I know that not having Eric Armstead is tough, and they probably won't have him this week, I'm guessing. Something that we'll probably find out a few more details from Kyle Shanahan. But they have to make it work. And on the other side of the ball, no more Von Miller for the Rams. That's big for the 49ers, because they need to figure out a way to, I mean, they're going to be getting pressure from the Rams after the tape that the 49ers put out yesterday, unable to handle cover zero blitzes sustainably. The Rams are going to do it too. And the 49ers are going to have to find a way to beat it. Christian McCaffrey is probably going to be a big part of that answer if the 49ers do answer it. But the 49ers are thinking they're lucky stars that there's no more Von Miller on the other side for the Rams. You can neutralize one top rusher like Aaron Donald schematically by sliding toward him. But when there are two, when there's Von Miller, you slide toward one guy, other guy beats you. I think we saw some of that yesterday, right? They slid toward Chris Jones. Here comes Frank Clark. So the Rams are worse than the Chiefs, and that's big news for the 49ers. That is the good only silver lining coming out of this game, besides the fact that the injury situation looked relatively clean. We'll have an update for you later today on Dre Greenlaw's calf injury. That's going to be a big one. But remember, it's a marathon and not a sprint. And also remember that you can check out my article on The Athletic, which I'm posting into the chat section one more time. There you go. It's up there. Make sure you subscribe to The Athletic. It's right there on the screen. 49ers outclassed on both lines of scrimmage. And that was just scratching the surface. They're outcoached and out-schemed as well. But they have an opportunity to turn this around. And that's the way it's going to have to be. Adversity is part of the game. All right, everybody, take care. We'll talk to you soon.